Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Fufakov Linguistic Academy. At the Fufakov Linguistic Academy, we linguistically analyze newspapers to look at how they create the narrative, a narrative, one of many narratives. And today, sorry for not posting a video for so long. I've actually made a couple but didn't put them up simply because they're kind of all going into the 20-minute zone. And I figured that, I'd like to kind of build viewership of this channel. And if I keep waffling on for 20 minutes about, really philological things, I'm probably going to end up with just one person, my mother, watching my videos on a regular basis. So I'm going to try and keep this one down to 5 to 6 minutes. And I will actually make another video about like why I started the channel and where I plan to go with the channel. But that's for a different video. Today we're going to have a fascinating look at a conservative American newspaper and a progressive American newspaper, and then also have a look at the progressive American newspapers' different language versions. It's something we've done once. Just as a quick recap, what I think we've discovered here by analyzing newspapers, the front page of newspapers over a period of a few months now, in relation to the Ukraine-Russia war, is that the likelihood of your newspaper featuring emotionally rousing content on the front page about this issue increases depending on a few factors. It really does seem to depend on progressive, conservative. So less likelihood of there being this emotional content on the front page if it's a conservative newspaper, higher if it's progressive. Obviously, the closer you are to the action, the more likely it is to appear. We saw the Australian newspapers, the Canadian newspapers, Brazilian newspapers are generally not featuring very much at all in the last few months. And then there was the kind of the one that what explains why would it still be so much prevalent on the American newspaper front pages when it's not on the Canadian ones? They're geographically quite close to each other and very far away from the action scene. And I personally came to the conclusion, my own personal conclusion, it's because of weapon sales. Like the greater the weapon sales, like the British newspapers tend to be more emotional about this on the American newspapers than countries like Australia and Canada, which are selling those weapons. But certainly, for me, the biggest one was that kind of conservative, progressive gap, like really big gap, particularly in the American one. So that's why we're visiting it today. And the news has been about a counteroffensive. Let's just have a look. A Ukrainian counteroffensive. Let's have a look at the front page of Fox News here. And as you can see, like as we look at it, welcome to our world, border sheriffs, Prince Charles, Biden, the Queen, California landslide, and one thumb down about American football. So we can see that there's no presence whatsoever about news connected with Ukraine on the front page of Fox News, so that would give it a 0 in our emotional content. What do you think about the progressive newspaper, the New York Times? Well, judging from what we've seen so far, it's going to be quite front and center. Sometimes not, and if it is, it'll be quite emotional. So let's have a look now. What do you think? And there it is, same day, same time, picture taken. We can see here that, yeah, if you read the New York Times, bang, it's right there. So there's really a big contrast if you think about it. I'll just sort of toggle back and forth. Like there's the Fox one. Welcome to our world. Some news about America. The Queen dying, which I kind of think is connected to America, and then Biden, American, and then here, bang, Ukraine, and then below that about Prince Charles. So just a very quick note, what I found interesting about the counteroffensive here, Ukraine's offensive, is that we see the appearance of military-related language. And I don't know if you've noticed this, if you've been reading the English-speaking newspapers over the past several months, there hasn't been a lot of reference to like offensive and counterattacking and assaults and things like that. There's been very little reference at all on the front page to military action, apart from rockets hitting buildings. So here we see offensive, claims more ground, stun, not really, successive rapid assault. And what's really, really interesting for me is the expert. This is something we talked about in a previous video. Always look at the experts being quoted. And so here the Ukrainian military said, which is quite interesting because what we saw in the first few months was the president of the Ukraine, Zelensky, he was virtually, I don't know if the only expert, but certainly the one that most quoted with the face there. But yeah, one of the things I've noticed in the past few months is his face really has disappeared to a large extent from the American newspapers, not so much from The Guardian. So that's retreating Russian forces, long range retaliated. So there's a lot of language here about military action, which is quite interesting because that was more or less absent before. Okay, but nutshell summary, conservative newspapers, absolutely nothing about this, like absolutely nothing on the front page, front and center in the progressive newspaper. So that's quite interesting. And then I thought, wait a second, let's have a look at the different language versions of the New York Times. We did this once before, and we found that, yeah, there definitely wasn't as much. And so I thought, okay, let's see where it is. Like, is the level of engagement, emotional engagement, as strong in the Spanish version of the New York Times as the English version? What about the Chinese version? Is it going towards Fox News where there's like less emotion there, or is it like Fox News where there's nothing there? Think about this for a second. So, you know, a Spanish-speaking person, probably Latin America, okay, probably Latin America, or within America itself, opening up the New York Times Spanish section. What do you think they'll see? Do you think it'll be like the New York Times English? Bang, it's right there. Where there's smoke, there's fire. You know, very emotionally engaging picture. Or do you think it'll be more like the Fox News one, where it's actually about, let's say, American politics and not as much, well, no focus on the Ukraine. So press pause, have a quick think about that. You know, Spanish-speaking people in America, the US, maybe Canada, Central America, South America. What do you reckon? Okay, so here it is, the New York Times app. That's my Spanish accent in English. It doesn't sound very good, does it? So we get this straight out. You don't need to speak Spanish to be able to understand that there's nothing here about the Ukraine. So you can see here, China, yeah, la política de cero COVID, China. Yeah, esto es lo que significa. This is a good thing about learning Spanish. It's actually quite easy. El momento constitucional de Chile no ha terminado, like hasn't terminated. You just need to know some auxiliary verbs. Okay, so it's about China, which is quite interesting. Like this one here is about Chile. Yeah, fair enough. Like, you know, we guessed before, a lot of people in South America and stuff like that. This one here is about China, which is really interesting. So why is China's COVID front, well, not front and center, but why is it like top left dominating the New York Times Spanish edition front page news? Let's see if we can find that same China COVID news in the English one. So there we go. Something about Atlanta, American poor people, or less poor. Children have become less poor. Some divas, monkeypox. Plan to push out store shelves. So there's nothing whatsoever. It's interesting, isn't it? Like there's no correlation whatsoever, no matching at all. With the main story in the Spanish-speaking one about China, there's nothing for the English speakers out there. You know, I don't know. Is that racist? Does that feel racist to you? The difference between two different language editions of the same newspaper, does that feel racist? Should it be the same? Okay, so hopefully there's nothing here. Otherwise, I've got that completely wrong. No, it's just about marriage and stuff like that. Yeah. I don't know. One little thing like Carlos, man. Like that's like Rey Carlos. It sounds so much better in Spanish than like King Charles. Well, like King Charles sounds pretty cool as well. But like, you know, Carlos. Carlos. That's really cool. Okay, so it's interesting, isn't it? And also much less emotion. Like he uses raging fire for the like English speakers. Whereas for the Spanish speakers, it's all a bit calmer, isn't it? Okay, what about the Chinese guys? Opening up the New York Times to read the New York Times Chinese edition. Do you think they're going to be greeted with something about China's zero COVID policy? You know, that would make sense. You know, Hispano-American people, China. Maybe Chinese version will have something about Brazil on the front page. What do you reckon, guys? What do you reckon? Let's take a look. Okay, guys, there it is, the Chinese language version. Princess Diana, front and center. This one here is just about some Chinese news. This one here is about some elections and stuff like that. But again, you can see here, just quickly looking at it, nothing there about the Ukraine again. Yep. Oh, yeah, Russia-China relations, trade relations. So that's quite interesting, isn't it? Again, we can see that for the Spanish speakers, it's almost like the Australian news, where there's nothing front page about what's happening in Ukraine. For the Chinese speakers, it's the same. And I don't know how you find that. I find that really fascinating. Like it's the same newspaper. It's got the same chief editor. There'll be the same ideas about, you know, kind of like what we're trying to produce for people here. But a very, very different interest focus depending on the language spoken. So guys, hopefully that one was interesting for you. I actually managed to keep it under 10 minutes. A little bit less depressing today, which is quite nice. So I hope you have a great time, and I look forward to catching up with you in the next Full Fucker video.